Get ready for the Work Better podcast. I'm Toree McQueen, here to share stories on what's working and what's not in business and in life from humans all over the world. I believe everyone's version of success looks different, but in the end, we should all love our life's work, and in doing so, live a life of complete fulfillment. And if you don't love your work, I'm hoping you'll tune in and uncover some inspiration here to work better. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome someone pretty awesome to this show. As a visionary CEO and founder of her own media company, she challenges conventional norms in live launching and evergreen strategies for business. Her proven methodologies offer course creators a stress-free, predictable path to success. She has a magnetic personality, guys. She is a sought-after speaker, and she also hosts her own podcast. So for those of you who want to learn more about her personal entrepreneurship journey, or who are multi-passionate, or you're looking to expand your own business strategy online, you're going to want to listen in to this conversation. Let's welcome Nicki Krawczyk. Hey, Nicki. So happy to have you here.
Hey, Toree. I'm excited to be here.
Yay. Okay. So I am excited to dig into everything that you do because you have several different businesses and they're all seven figure, and it looks like you're kind of multi-passionate also, which is kind of fun. And yeah, so I've been watching you from afar. So before we dive in, though, to all the fun questions, can you just share with our audience what you do and where you started and how you So just a quick
absolutely.
Yeah, I know that's pretty heavy loaded,
Yeah,
but
we're like, okay, here's what I've been doing for the past 20 years. No, no, not quite 20. Well, I guess it does kind of go back to 20 some years because my background is in copywriting. So I've been a professional copywriter for more than 20 years now, which is insane to say out loud. But the way that my online business started was in 2012. I was working for a company and they needed me to build up a copywriting team. Basically, I had to hire a bunch of copywriters, train them up and get it. And so that's what I did. I hired people and I trained them on how to write copy, that marketing messaging. And, they would bring in samples. We'd discuss it. I had essentially lesson plans. And after that finished and I kind of unleashed them on the websites, I thought, I wonder if people would want to learn this, because the funny thing that is also really good for my business is that you can't major in copywriting in college. You can major in marketing or advertising, but you can't major in copywriting. Again, please, if anybody from a university is listening, don't get any ideas. I like it just the way it is.
right.
But so I created a course and in 2012, and a little adorable brand new entrepreneur me was like, oh, if I just put in a course, people are going to buy it. It's so good. This is going to be amazing. I'm going to make $1 million. And of course, we know now that's not how it works. You don't just put out a course and then people buy it and business is so easy. Yeah, not quite like that. So really thankfully, it was and is a good program. We've obviously built on it since then, so that I would have people that did happen to purchase it write in and say, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I lost my job, but because I had this course, I was able to get another one within, like a couple of weeks, and just all kinds of great stuff. And they really kind of kept me going, because it wasn't until 2018, so really like 6 years of kind of trying all the things, trying live launching, I made it a membership. I did this, I did that. And I couldn't find anything that would sell it consistently. And so in 2018, I finally took a step back and was like, well, wait a minute here. Instead of doing all the things that everybody tells you to do, Toree, this industry is such an echo chamber of often an echo chamber of bad advice. Yes. Like, do this. I finally, at the end of 2018, was like, okay, Nick, take a step back and let's what do you know? And what do you I know messaging like nobody's business. I know customer psychology. And I also know that I don't want a live launch. I want to be able to automate my sales so that I can spend the majority of my energy not on this wide group of people, many of whom will just never purchase because they're just never going to. I can spend my energy and time on the people who really deserve it, the people who've paid for the programs. So at the end of 2018, I developed a system to, like I said, sell that copywriting course on autopilot, without me having to worry about it. Build it once and then just let it go. And so in 2018, for just that business, 2018 was at that point I made $40,000, which was the most I'd made up till that point. Yes, yes. And then 2019, I hit 268,000, and then in 2020, I hit 1.6 million. And then
Wow.
obviously I've continued to grow from there. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to cut you off because I'm just listening to everything here, but I have so many questions. I don't know where to even start because first off, you took a skill that you have, right? And you were already working. Was that a corporate job that you were working
It
through,
was.
right? Okay. So my first question there is when you were working that job, did you start this as like a side hustle or what was the whole motivation there between like, okay, I'm loving this as a job to actually like I could package this and sell it to anybody, especially 2012, because this was now everybody does a course, everybody launches courses. Like you said, an echo chamber. We'll dig into that here shortly, but this was 2012, which was really, I would say, the very beginning stages. And I could be wrong there, but that's where things just kind of started blooming there
Yeah.
or blossoming in the course creation market or anybody to just kind of launch a course in their skill set. So I would love to hear like what your whole thought process was as you were in your career and then why you even thought about doing it and what that even looked like, and
Yeah.
to hear that it took you 6 years before you even figured it out, I would love for you to share some
Yes,
insight on that.
yes. Oh, absolutely. So what made me think of doing it? I think I was lucky to come across a couple of resources at kind of like pivotal points. Like, have you ever read the book Think and Grow Rich?
Oh,
I
yeah.
feel like, yeah, right. I was just like, I want to make the assumption, but like, yeah, right. Like, I have like various copies in rooms in my house, and um,
audio,
yeah,
hard
right. Like I
copy, yeah.
listened to it, and then the underlined version, then this, and that. But like I don't want to make the assumption, but I felt like I could kind of make the assumption. But I actually came across that in high school. Like the guy I was dating was like, "Hey, here's a good book. You should read it." And so I
Oh my
read
god.
that, and that kind of stuck in the back of my mind. And then my first job out of college, I was working with someone who, and we were talking about business. He's like, "Oh man, you have to read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and you have to, because it's if you want to start a business, that's how you." So I had these kind of like little
Mhm.
seeds planted.
That's
Then of course,
so
then the 4-hour work week came on. It's just all the stuff that's
all the
like
things.
right,
Mhm.
and it's all the books that all the business owners have read, and we're like, bing, bing, bing. So they just kind of dropped in there, so that by the time I had finished training up these writers, I thought, this is something that it's actually at that point, it was really hard to learn how to write copy. I was lucky in that my dad was a marketing director. And so he would bring home extra work for me to do in high school, like, and then give me feedback on it. So but most people don't get training through their parents. So I knew that I had a unique opportunity and then also unique experience. In my copywriting experience, I have written for multi-billion-dollar corporations, for Adidas, for Reebok, for Hasbro, Keurig, like big names, and then also solopreneurs. And so I can kind of talk to all of these arenas. I have a lot of
Mhm.
experience. And it just struck me as a really good way to be able to share that. And the funny thing, and Tori, you probably figured this out long before I did, but I was like, I'll just start a business. This is going to be great. I'll make money. But it just never it never occurred to me what an impact it would have on people, and that's how it is with across all of our brands. And, we'll talk about all the other ones as well. But we have people because we have a podcast now for that arm of the business, the copywriting arm of the business. And people are like, I just have to say thank you so much. This changed my life. We were on food stamps and now I can buy a house, or I was able to retire my husband. Like just
Wow. Mm.
amazing stuff. And it's so incredible to go from like, I'm going to start a course to actually impacting thousands of people. It's amazing. Anyway,
Yeah.
a little bit of a tangent, but
Yeah, no, I think you're right in that once you get into it and you start realizing that it's so much bigger than just you, and that's kinda what keeps you going, right?
yeah.
Because You're like, okay, I can just start whatever business. But then when you start impacting others at a certain level that they didn't even see that they could achieve, that's where that's where the gold is, I feel like. So thank you for bringing that up. Um, so when you did start it and you said it took you a while to get it going, were you still at your corporate at the time? Like, were you doing both? You're just
I was
kind of playing around with
doing
it, or
Yeah, I was doing corporate for a while, and then I was full-time freelance for a while, and really kind of always doing it on the side. And the thing that really made the change for me in 2018 was I decided to finally start treating my business like a business. You know,
or
I because yeah, I had been kind of I was working and I worked on it a lot, but without no, not even without strategy, but Tori, there's just a difference between like, I've got a business and no, I have a business.
now I
And
want to
putting
play to
on
win.
that
Yeah.
exactly. Like I am in this. I'm putting on the CEO hat and I'm looking at the numbers that I didn't really want to look at. And I'm
Numbers.
learning the things, right? Numbers. Like I it used to be, and I don't think they say this as much anymore, but they used to say, like, you can spend $10 a day on Facebook and sell your, and I was like, great, I'll spend $10 a day on Facebook without understanding what it meant to spend 10, and like, what's my cost per lead? What are my
For
conversion,
what's
all that
good,
kind of,
not
exactly.
good.
Like, what can I
Yeah.
afford that cost, all of that kind of stuff. So I finally was like, all right, if I'm going to do this, that I'm going to do this and I'm going to dig in and learn all the stuff that I need to know. And I'm going to stop avoiding the uncomfortable things or oh, that seems a little bit challenging or I don't need,
That's not
and
the
just,
fun part.
yeah, exactly. Like I kind of just wanted to have fun. Yeah. And the thing is, there is so much about business that is fun. But the truth is, too, is that there's so much about business that is challenging and that is
Mhm.
uncomfortable. And you have a lot of good days and you also have a lot of bad days. And that it doesn't matter what level you are at. In fact, I really enjoy it when I'm listening to, podcasts with like the multi-million dollar, they make hundreds of millions of dollars a year and they're like, yeah, it's really tough. I'm like, oh, thank you. Like
Right?
for some reason, it's almost good that it doesn't get better because it's like, all right, we're all in it together. Yeah.
Yes, and the game just shifts and changes,
Yes.
so it's a constant challenge, and it is kinda one of those things, like, you are literally hiking up the mountain, and you just go higher and higher and higher.
Yes.
It's like
Yes.
you either turn around and go back downhill if you want,
Mhm.
or, like, you just keep hiking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't really get easier, you just
No.
kinda learn to continue to, like, build that muscle and take one step in front of the other, and
Yeah.
then
And isn't that the funny
at
thing? I
the
mean,
entire time, yeah.
right? Like, I don't know if you're the same. It sounds like you're the same way that like that intellectually, that, but you secretly think at a certain point it's going to get easy. Like, oh
Uh-uh.
no, I forgot. It's just going to be different stuff. Like,
Oh, now I have
oh
to hire
yeah.
and manage.
Yeah, like,
Oh,
oh, and
oh,
then we have to deal with this, and then there are these legal things, and then it's like, oh, fun. But it's at the same time, though, I was talking to friends the other day, also business owner friends, and,
mhm.
the I think the thing that I think some newer business owners don't know is that we all have secret fantasies about what we would do if we didn't own our companies. Like, my personal secret fantasy is I would go work in a bread store where all I have to do all day is ask people if they want it sliced or not. Like, obviously totally impractical. I don't think anybody can make a living just working in a bread store, but that's my,
That
like,
is
when it gets
hilarious.
really hard, I'm like, "A bread store." But at the
Right.
same time, like, when people say, "Well, what else would you do?" I don't I what if
Uh-uh.
I actually had to make a change? It would still be business because even on its most challenging day, it's still I'm still the one in charge, and I get to make the
Mhm.
decisions, and I'm having, like we were saying, a bigger impact than I could doing just about anything else.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I right there when you're like, "Okay, we all have this secret, like, on these bad days," I feel so much better because sometimes I feel like nobody has those days, and I'm the only one that's, like, where you feel on the brink of, like, quitting. You're not gonna quit, but it is
Yeah,
like, God, like, it would be so much easier if I just
just
put
gave
my
up.
sweatpants on, yeah, I put my sweatpants on and sat here and Like, because I tell my husband, I said, there is no time. Like, I can't be lazy. Like, I can't just be lazy, which nobody I think wants to be lazy, but I can admit there are days where I'm like, I just don't want to think or be strategic. But in business, like, you can't really turn that off. I don't know how to describe that other than like if you go on vacation, but there is still that part of you that is always trying to figure out something, right?
Yes.
Figure out better margins, figure out how to hire someone, figure out a new job role that you need, or figure out who you don't need, like what product are you going to do? Like just so many different thoughts. And I think, especially if you're in a stage where you don't have enough revenues to hire executives, and I think there's a lot of us in that middle realm where it's like, oh, we didn't actually raise enough funds to hire the people who can do these things that like in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Right. So we're kind of wearing all those hats. And there are times where I tell my husband, it would just be easier if I just made, got a high corporate salary and just sat back. And we're like, who are we kidding? Can you imagine me walking in an office and listening and not and someone telling me what to do and then me coming up with all these different ideas on how I can change it or how I can do it. And I'm like, oh man, like
Right.
that is
Asking for somebody else's approval. Like, do you approve of this? Can I do this? Like, oh no, no, those days
trying to
are
solve a
long
problem that
past.
wasn't even mine to solve. Like,
Yes.
just
Right?
only imagine wanting to jump into all the different departments just to learn,
Mhm.
Anyways, but I'm glad you brought that up because especially with social media and what you see out there now, it's like you don't really see what goes on behind the curtain. And I think, in a lot of ways, and maybe you have some insight on this too with clients that you work with, it seems that, you know, you can't tell who's successful or flailing on social.
Yes.
Right. And
Yes.
honestly, does that so like you said with the echo chamber, you don't even know who to take guidance from or who to listen to. So kind of going back to what you said, this was kind of one of my other questions I had for you was at what moment did you realize, you know what, I need to shut everybody else out in a world of personal self-development and start tuning in to what I already know?
Mhm.
And just
Mhm.
going in that route, and that's when you said it changed everything for you. So if you can kinda dig in there and
Yeah.
give us some words of wisdom there, that would be great.
Yeah. I think it really came when I understood just how possible it was to be successful in business. Because I kind of had
Mhm.
I went to, at the end of 2018, I went to a live business event. And I was, talking to a lot of other people. And again, at that point, 2018, because I implemented the system, I hit 40,000. So previous to that, like I was in credit card debt trying to make it work because I had taken
Oh,
fewer.
thanks for sharing that.
Oh,
Oh,
totally. I had
gosh.
taken fewer copywriting clients because I wanted to get the business going, but the business wasn't going. So I had like 55,000 in consumer credit card debt, which I then paid off the next year, which was amazing. But it, and, paying to be at this event. But I was sitting with some people at a table and talking with them, just, kind of like you do. You mix, you meet new people and just really nice people, just having a conversation. And we finished up our conversation. And then next thing, they were calling people up to the stage and they're like, okay, and here are the $1 million business owners. And the two people next to me stood up, two people I've been talking with stood up and went up to the stage. And I went, oh, oh, like just normal people can do this. Like just it's
Yeah.
not a different type of person. It's not a normal people can do this. And it kind of opened the possibilities up for me. I still think about way back when, even when I was just beginning to start the business, I was still doing some copywriting work. Thumbs up. Was still doing some copywriting work on for a solopreneur, and she was like, "I'll send me your invoice." It was like $700, something like that. But it was like, would you be willing to barter a coaching call? It was probably the easiest $700 she ever made, but she was like, yeah, sure. And basically my call was just like, is it actually possible to build a business? And she's like, yeah,
Great.
yeah, yeah. Like I do. Seriously, easiest $700 she ever made. But I have found it's very helpful to see examples of other people doing it. And now that I
Mhm.
can be an example for people, I want people to see that, yes, number one, it's possible, but I also want people to hear that, no, it's not easy. Because I think another big problem with our
Yeah.
industry is that there are a lot of people saying, hey, start your business. You can sell courses on anything and you can make money and it's so
Like
easy.
the new MLM type.
Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
It's you can control your schedule and you can sell a course about anything. And you might be able to sell one or two courses about anything, but you might not actually be able to make a full business of it. But it's just so the system that I ended up creating to sell the copywriting course, we now sell to a couple of years ago. So my entrepreneur friends were like, hey, can you teach us how to do that? So we created the course on how that system works. We call it the circuit sales system. And so we get students, entrepreneurs at all different levels, and get a lot of experienced entrepreneurs who are just sick of live launching. But we also get a lot of newer business owners. And I'm glad that I could kind of be part of the journey to help people understand what some of the roadblocks that they're going to hit are. But it also just kind of makes me feel not sad, but a little disappointed that so many people are coming in thinking that it's going to be easy. Like, well, I'll just do this and it'll be easy. Or I don't know. It's a little
Ugh.
disheartening sometimes. Yeah.
Right. And it kind of reminds me, I mean, this is a little bit off, but it reminds me of like my kids when they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna do a lemonade stand," or whatever. I'm like, "Yeah, you got all the enthusiasm. You're gonna figure out the ingredients. You're gonna go buy them. Okay, great. And you park yourself right on the curb
Yeah.
where nobody knows you're there. What do you want me to do? You want me to post in the neighborhood? Like, what's your plan here?"
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same. It's like, "Oh, I created an Instagram account. I created this. Like, okay, here it is."
Yeah.
And crickets,
Yeah. And again,
right?
I absolutely was right there. Like I said, I was that little business owner who was like, and I don't mean to I'm saying that about myself, not about anybody else.
Yeah,
But
no,
that newbie business owner who was like, yay, I'm
yeah.
gonna make so we all, I think probably if we didn't have that level of hope, we wouldn't have ever gotten into it.
Exactly,
But
well mhm.
at the same time too, we have to we as much as we can say, like, look, the possibilities are amazing. I do think it's also important to say, look, the possibilities are amazing, but it's going to challenge you in ways you absolutely don't expect.
Oh, yes, and the same goes, I gave the example with my kids, but the same goes, like, I have a team of real estate agents, and the same thing is like, "Oh, it's so easy to get your license," like, "Oh, I'm a realtor now. Oh, yay. I'm gonna tell everybody I'm a realtor," and such low barrier to entry, and then they're like, "How do I get clients? What do I do?"
Oh,
And it's like, "Oh, you're now the work begins. Now, like, that course is nothing. Like, now you're gonna have to dig in and really prove to yourself, how like, that you can do this as a business. And anything is possible, but it really is that mind game." So, what do you think it is that gets people either through that or kinda halts them? Like, in your experience, what you see?
that's a great question. I think that probably one of the biggest things is the commitment, is saying, look, I'm going to figure this out. Because the
Yeah.
truth is that there's not actually anything magical about business. Like, sure,
Mhm.
sometimes we might have,
Exa
serendipitous things might happen, or you might have an idea or what,
Mhm.
but there's really nothing magical about it. It's not a matter of like, ooh, if I just say the right words, and don't get me wrong, I love crystals. I spend stupid amounts of money on like
That is
stupid
so sweet.
amounts. Like, what? Candles that have crystals at the bottom. Anyway,
Uh,
but there's nothing magical about business. There are just certain levers
it's a
and
puzzle.
certain dials. Exactly. It's a puzzle. But it can be figured out when you figure out who you're selling to, who's the right audience, what's the right offer, what's the right price, what's the right selling mechanism. It's just levers and dials, and you keep tweaking them, you keep testing them until you find something that works. And then when you find something that works, then you keep testing it to try to get it even better. But I think that is it also, though, takes commitment to follow through on that. Because I think a lot of people will have the commitment to like start the business and they want to help people, and that's beautiful. But you have to make the commitment to yourself and to your business to stick with it, because there are also going to be so many opportunities to throw in the towel and be like, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. And I don't want to, you'll get calls from people who are offering you jobs, or you get calls from the opportunity to do something different. So I think it really comes down to making that commitment. And even though you might have a bread shop fantasy, sticking with it. Because if you keep going, you will figure it out. And there will be easy times and there will be hard times. And there will be times where there might be times where you think, oh my gosh, I don't even know if I can keep doing this. But you have to stick with it anyway, because you will get out the other side if you just stick with it.
Yes. Yes, I love that. And I do talk about that. I just talked about that on my last episode that I did on only having a plan A. Like,
Yes.
there is only a plan A. It's like, and the same thing for like becoming, I always relate things back to like becoming a parent, right? Because, and I don't know if you're a parent or not, but it relates it back to saying like, okay, once you have it, there's no going back. Like, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tricky. You're going to go through everything. You have zero clue what you're doing, and you're going to get through it. That's the only way out is through. And the more you're committed, like you said, to figure it out and just keep persisting, then you're bound to make something happen as long as you have that commitment, right? And I think that's great with business because, there are a lot of things that come your way and that can distract you, which is another question I have for you because you do run multiple different businesses and you started while you're in corporate. So let's chat about kind of how you evolved into your one business and then how you committed to starting another business and then committed to doing another business. And when did you leave your corporate, or did
Yeah.
you like how did all of that look? And not just for you, but when someone is coming to you for that guidance, whether they should leave their job now or stay there and do it part-time, I would love to hear what you recommend people do,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
The piece of advice that I really can't stand is that the leap and the net will appear. I really can't stand that. Like, I don't know. I,
Uh,
I think it's beautiful, and I love the idea that maybe that's possible, but I can't leap with a mortgage. You know what I'm saying? Like, I
right,
need
and
to
that's
make
so
sure
realistic.
there's
Mm,
a net. Yeah, absolutely. And I will say that, when I started my business, it was in a very different place in my life. I was living in a much smaller place. I had a mortgage, but the mortgage was much smaller. I
yeah,
had just fewer requirements on my time and my energy.
yeah,
Also, what was that, like 12 years ago? I was younger and had
uh,
more energy.
yeah,
So I don't even necessarily know that I would recommend doing things the way that I did, because like we were saying, I left corporate and then I was freelancing, but I scaled back on my freelancing to work more on the business,
mhm,
and I got into credit card debt. And you know what? As much as it's part of my origin story, and I can say, look, if you have been there, it's possible to get out of it. I don't recommend getting into it if you can skip the credit card debt step, skip that step. Don't get into credit card debt, like, pro tip, don't get into $55,000 worth of debt. Like,
oh,
it all worked out fine, but debt is stressful. It is so stressful. And thankfully, I figured out my system in a way that let me pay it off quickly, which was very nice. But I, when I talk to our copywriters, when I talk to people who want to get into, who want to start an online business, if at all possible, I say, and I know this is hard, especially as we get older and we have kids, we have spouses, we have family, we have aging parents too. If
yeah,
possible, do it on the side. Do,
wow,
if you can complete a marathon by taking baby steps. You just have to keep taking the baby steps. So if you
uh,
need to keep your job for a financial reason, now if you don't, if you have a spouse or a significant other who's willing to let you kind of figure things out, then absolutely great. Talk that through, the two of you, certainly.
yeah,
But great. It sounds like a great opportunity. I have never had that. So it was always going to be on me, which was also nice though, because the financial ramifications were only my own. So I didn't have to worry about, a husband and kids and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
But I would say if you can keep your job and build up your business on the side, do that if you possibly can, because it's so much easier. It's so much easier to build a business when you're not worried about money at the same time. The key though is that you have to keep sticking with it. You have to schedule that time. And it has to be sacred time. If your work time is 9 to noon every Saturday and whatever, then that has to be sacred time. If that's what you're committing to and you're committing to building this business, then then your priorities may have to shift a little bit, or you may have to barter some childcare time with other people, that kind of thing. But it's, if you can have a financial base, or if you can work at your company or work at your job and like store some cash up, sock away some cash so that you have it, that's absolutely what I would recommend, because it is so easy to burn through money when you are building a business. So easy.
That is a whole nother thing that people don't talk about,
Yes.
especially if you're a solopreneur or, you know, you get pinpointed as a business and you get stuck in this trap that everything's a write-off and you don't know what systems to use, but there's so many different types of systems. And then there's bigger ones, smaller ones, different now AI programs like piecemealing everything
Mhm.
together, and really it can get real clunky
Oh,
and
yeah.
real trendy.
Mhm.
And there's no right way or wrong way for one particular business. So again, it's this thing of kind of ignoring what everybody else is doing and really
Yes.
tuning in to, okay, wait, maybe I don't need this system. What's the most simplest way that I can do what I need to do
Mhm.
to get the job done
Yeah.
without spending? Because you are so right that money can just fly out the window.
So easily. Well, and I think too, especially when you're getting started with the business, there's so much that you don't know. So it's very tempting to be like, oh my gosh, I don't understand ads. So I'm going to just hire an agency to do that. Or I don't understand socials. I'm going to hire an agency to do that. Or I'm going to,
Mhm.
hiring out all this stuff. Well, the problem is if you don't understand it at all, then you can't give good feedback to an agency, or you
Uh-huh.
can't, when they say, oh, we're doing this, you can't say, oh, no, actually don't do that because that's not my audience, or that's not, that kind of thing. It's there's such a learning curve as you're building your business. And I guess there kind of always is, right? You have
Yeah.
to be a sponge, but it's also really easy to spend things, and like you were saying, lose focus on things that are not a direct line to revenue. Like I know that there are some business coaches, gurus out there who are like, you can just do social media and social media will make you $1 million. Maybe there is. I have not found out how to do that. That sounds amazing. I would love to know, but I have not seen anybody yet that's convinced me that you can just like post on social media and make $1 million. There's
Uh-huh.
and
I
then what that means is that
Yep.
social media becomes a distraction. It's not a direct
Yes.
line to revenue. So it's so easy to spend all your time on social media and then at the end of the month go, "Oh my gosh, I didn't make any sales. Wait a minute."
I
This
spent so much time posting, and I
Yes.
thought that was gonna get me money, but
Yes. Yeah, it's
it's so
anything that
funny because I do love I looked at some of your videos that you do, and it's not like you have crazy huge accounts, but the videos that I watch, I'm like, "These are hilarious."
Oh,
You're
thank you.
They're
Well
so fun. Yes.
well, and I have a team though to help me
I
out with that, right? Like, thank
Uh-huh.
God, I can't even imagine, like, going back in the early
Me
days and trying to figure all that schedule, all that stuff. Thank God, and everybody listening, watching, you can get there eventually as well. But at
Mhm.
the same time too, we are perpetually going back to the social team and going, "Okay, this was great, this was great." But at the same time, let's get really focused. What's actually performing? Yes, let's experiment with some stuff, but what's actually making a difference? What are people actually commenting on? And even still, if they're commenting, are they clicking on anything?
Mhm.
Are they going to
Converting.
the links? Exactly. Are they commenting to get the free training? Because if they're not, then it's not, for everything that we do, we need to know what the goal is. And fundamentally, the goal with social media, it's not to get followers and likes and, as much as it's like,
Right.
yay, look at my number. First of all, there's always going to be somebody who has more than you do anyway, but what is the point? Exactly. It's vanity metrics. What is the point of all of this? It's the social media is to get them back to your website to make those purchases.
Yes, yes. And I love that you say that because I do think people do get caught up on the vanity stuff on social and they forget why they're doing it. And I fallen victim to that too. When you're like, oh my
Totally.
gosh, you think it's free, but you calculate your dollar per hour and it's like, okay, this is only worth it if I spend X amount of hours on it. And then it has to make this kind of return. Like if you are
Mhm.
actually thinking of it as a business,
Yeah.
and that is the reality of it. And I do think, I am in the real estate industry, but also in the educational side. And it is one of those things where you're like, okay, let's not get caught into thinking that this busy work is actually creating dollars.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes, exactly. And it's like you were saying on Instagram, you see everybody else do it. And so you go, well, I guess I have to do it too, without understanding what's behind and also without understanding whether it's performing for them. You could be looking at somebody else's
Yep.
profile and be like, they're doing so much stuff. We really need to be doing a ton more stuff too, guys. And they could be on their side, they could be like, oh God, we really need to scale this back. We're spending way too much money on socials. You can't judge from the outside.
Mhm. Exactly, exactly. Hey there, friends. Are you in business and wanting to get more clients over the next 6 weeks? Well, I've got something just for you, the 5831 Method Session and Guide. It's all about simplifying your strategy to attract and close those dream clients. No more guesswork. Think of this as a little one-on-one session with me to figure out the exact strategies to gain those next clients to close. When you jump on board, you'll snag a downloadable guide and step-by-step video session with yours truly, so we can tailor this method to fit your unique business and goals. And imagine this, in just under an hour session, you'll have a custom roadmap ready to roll out over the next 6 weeks. So what are you waiting for? No matter what business you're in, head on over to toreemcqueen.com/method. That's toreemcqueen.com/method, or find the link in the show notes to get more clients today. Now, when people start working with you and oh gosh, my brain's thinking of like
Yeah.
going on a couple different tangents here, but when people start working with you and talking about their businesses and what they're doing, at what point do you like how often are you evaluating your conversions and your metrics to be able to determine when to quit here, when to start here, when to adjust? Because, I've fallen victim, not victim, but like I've done this myself where it's very easy to quickly pivot. But is it 6 months? Is it 6 weeks? Is it, how do you know when a course that's made or a path that they're going on is just a failure or you just haven't tweaked it enough in the messaging, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's because we have sales coming in every day, and as we work with our circuit sales system students, they get to that point as well. I recommend checking those numbers on a weekly basis. And I used to check those numbers on a monthly basis until I had the experience of like, yeah, sure, increase the ad spend. We did so well last October. And you get to the end of the month and go, oh my gosh, I overspent by, X amount of money. So I like to look at those numbers on a weekly basis because then you'll still see a little bit of variance, but
Mhm.
that lets you head off a problem. If you go, oh, last week was a little bit low. This week is a little bit low too. What were we doing 3 weeks ago that we're not doing now? What changed? Is it a seasonality thing? That's certainly, especially for our industry, people aren't as interested in building their business. We should be interested in all year long, but for whatever reason, people are like in summertime, we're like, oh, whatever. And same thing too with professional copywriting training, So there may be seasonality, or is there a test you're running that's not performing well? Or is your ads manager experimenting with a new audience that's just not performing? I like to look at these numbers on a regular basis. And then our team has a regular cadence for testing things. Once a quarter, we're going in and we're looking at all of our subject lines and doing subject line testing to see if we can improve it. As we look at new pages, whenever we roll out a new like opt-in page for a new audience, we run that opt-in page and then we run tests on that opt-in page to see if we can improve it. The wonderful thing is, and simultaneously frustrating thing is that, Toree, there's always stuff that you can improve, always stuff that you can test.
Mhm.
You could it would be very easy to just
It's a different
lose yourself
game.
completely. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. But I like to look at the metrics, and I recommend once our students have their circuit up and going to be looking at the metrics on a weekly basis so they have a really good understanding of it all.
That's so good. I love all that. Again, back to, what people are expressing online. We kind of chatted like, oh, it's a new MLM, people talking about, oh, I make this much money. And it's like, yeah, but like that, I don't really care how much revenues you have because I have zero idea at the end of the day what your net profit is. You just don't know. So it's
Yeah,
like, okay, you don't know how much. Okay, I made $1 million this month. Okay,
yeah.
well, you spend 900,000 in ads or like,
Or 1.1 million on absolutely, absolutely.
and it just becomes this like total like
Mhm.
wave of
Yeah.
unknown, you know?
It's so tricky because, I will hear people say things like, "Oh, I just really hate it when people just talk about the money that they're making." And I'm like, I absolutely get that. But I will say that in our ads, I talk about it because it's
'Cause that's what
context,
converts.
right? Exactly. And that's what people are interested in hearing. As much as it's
The
like, "Oh,
result.
I don't want to hear about," yeah. Like you want to know that the system that I created made me 40x my revenue in 2 years. And then too, I want people to be thinking like, "Wow, 40x. I would even take doubling or whatever." But I
Mhm.
know it's something that I'm absolutely wrestling with myself because there is that element of like, and then there's the show everybody what your numbers are. What was your income and what was your, you know what? I don't
I
want
don't
to.
wanna do that.
I don't want to. Because you
Why
know what?
not? No other business
Exactly.
does that.
Exactly. And sometimes there are times when profit is really high. And then sometimes there are growth periods where profit is really low. But that doesn't mean that that there's anything less good about our systems or yeah, it's a very and I wish I knew what the solution was. I
It's
really do because
hard because people don't know other store. Like, you don't walk into a boutique and they're not displaying what they bought everything for and what they're
yeah.
selling it for and what they're doing with it. So,
Yeah.
I totally feel you on that, and I get that. And people do buy into the results. They want the results.
Mhm.
Like, what gets people to the gym? Showing them what kind of body they can have,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So, I don't think, there's anything wrong with marketing that way because that is
Mhm.
to the end of time, all the tests, I think,
Mhm.
get those results,
Yeah. Yeah.
or that's the result is what kinda
Yeah.
is what sells.
But it's true because it's also really easy to look successful on Instagram. Like I know that my stuff is legit, but I see people out there and I'm like, "No, I actually know like so and so talked to so and so who talked to me." So I know that, all that kind of stuff. It's
I
just I don't know,
know. It's
it's very challenging. So yeah, we talk about our numbers and we try to highlight our student success stories. On our podcast, it's like every 4 episodes we interview one of our students and how the system worked for them as well. But it's such a weird, it's ours is such a weird industry in so many ways, so many ways.
well, and there's a lot of transparency, but then,
Mhm.
there's some you pick and choose what's transparent, and I think that's
Yes.
fine because no every business is like that. You kinda gotta
Mhm.
pay to play, like, get
Mhm.
in and, peek under the covers and then see what's there, see
Yeah.
what you like, right?
Yeah.
But let's talk about your teams,
Mhm.
or team
Yeah.
and what that looked like, because I think this is very, very hard for people, and it was very hard for me to even start getting a team and then getting an operations manager and then training that person, and then that person left, and then now you got a deck of cards, like, it all collapses, and just the learning curves that you go through, and not to mention now you're responsible for feeding other families, like, it's so rewarding, but also such a different challenge than just the excitement of starting a business. So,
Yeah.
if you can explain to us, like, what did that look like when you actually started running your business like a business? And what did it look like
Mhm.
getting your first teammate or what strategy how did that go versus where you're at now with all
Yeah.
your different pillars?
The first thing that I hired for, and I always continue to look for these opportunities. The first thing that I hired for was what was sucking the most energy from me. And I think that's not necessarily what people think about. They think about like, oh, I'll get a VA to do the little tasks, or I'll get, a social media manager to do, and those are great positions. But for me, I looked at what was what was knocking me out of the game throughout the day. And
Okay.
that was customer service. So the first person I hired for was customer service.
Oh, yeah.
It's so
Mhm.
annoying that as humans, we get like a ton of amazing feedback. Like, oh my God, this is so amazing. Thank you so much. Da, da, da. And then you get one random person sending you an email being like, how dare you charge for this? This should be something that we should all have access to. And then it ruins the rest of your day. And I would look at like, of course I'm going to charge for this. Would you walk into an Apple store and say, how dare you charge for this? Like, it's a business. Um,
Ugh,
but clearly this still
yes,
gets me
I
riled up.
know.
But I looked at how I spent my days, and when I was working on customer service, or when I was doing, this is another thing, monitoring ads on comments, which comments on
Right.
ads, which I think is even worse. I would read something negative from a complete stranger who had no idea what the business was about, but just something that it would knock me out for the rest of the afternoon. Like I would be down
Emotionally.
and unfocused. Exactly. And I couldn't I couldn't afford that in the business. I
Yeah.
needed to have someone else. So the first thing I hired for was customer service and ads, and then very quickly put in some parameters so that very rarely did things have to get elevated to me. And now we also have an operations manager, and she manages customer service. So it is, I can't even remember the last time that Caitlin had to bring something to me that she, 'cause
Couldn't
she's the
handle.
operations manager. Exactly. She knows what to do. Um, I can't, which is so wonderful. So
So
wonderful.
wonderful.
Yeah. But I'm always looking for things that, because the thing is that I have an amazing team. It's an amazing team. I've had some missteps in terms of hiring. I have made some missteps, which always sucks.
I think everybody does.
Yeah.
I think everybody goes through that.
Yeah, and also too, like, speaking of operations manager, Caitlin was not the first operations manager I hired. I hired someone who is a great person, but I didn't know how to ask for what I wanted to get. I was like, all right, can you
Mhm.
create systems? She's like, yeah, I can create systems. I was like, okay, great, come on the team. Like, I like you as a person. Come on the team. And she didn't have that operations mindset. Very nice person and like very enthusiastic, but she
I
didn't.
need you to read my mind.
Yeah,
I
well,
need you to, like, understand the vision and then just put the pieces together.
but then even some of the stuff, like, not to get on a tangent, but like even some of the stuff I'm like, okay, the videos in Vimeo are out of control. Can you go in and like create a system for them? Like, we have all kinds of different videos for all the different brands. She's like, great. And so she went in, and the system was she just organized things by year. And I was like, oh, but okay, but now I just go into the year and it's still chaotic in there. And I don't know what's in each year. So I can't, this isn't really a system. And she's
Uh,
like, oh. So again, nice
yes.
person, but like she just didn't, that's not the way
Yeah.
her brain worked. But I didn't know how to, at that point in hiring, didn't know how to ask the right questions that would have identified what her strengths were and what her weaknesses were. So
And that's
that's part of learning
hard.
too.
That
Yeah.
is part of learning. And, even for me now, I've learned to say, like, okay, I need to be able to easily pull this data. Like, I don't care how you get it. I need to be able to pull 3 years from now's data easily. So, like,
Yeah.
however you want to do that. And then kind of back to the result thing. This is the result I need. And I need someone to figure out I can do it, but it would take me way too long. And
Yeah.
I'm not
And
in
I
the
don't
deep.
wanna.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, no. So, I totally feel you on that, and I think that's like an entrepreneur's ring of fire of, like, learning. I feel like especially as a female entrepreneur because we are so I feel like in tune emotionally to, like, different people and different things and making sure our clients are happy and,
Yeah.
all the details of it, we care a
Yeah.
lot, and I think that makes it hard to get through that and to learn.
Yeah, exactly. And it's you give probably more chances than you should. I think everybody, we've only had to, like, I mean, we've had a team for several years, and we have a big team. I think we've only really had to let go of one of them was the operations manager, and then was doesn't matter. And even we've had one or two people who are like, you know what, actually, this isn't a right fit. And we're like, yes, thank you. It wasn't the right fit. But
Mhm.
I think it's very easy to let things go on for too long because, like, Oh, you want them to figure it out.
Is it
And
me?
you,
Is it
exactly,
me?
like, am I doing something wrong? What am I doing? Okay, how am I not explaining this? All right, and you can get to the point where you're giving too much. And because you want them to succeed and you don't want to have to let them go and have them not like you. But that's another instance of the putting on the CEO hat versus there's the I'm a, s- you know, it's, I think it's easy as a business owner, especially as a woman. And I don't have kids, but I think I still, the proud auntie, it takes a village. I'm
Okay.
the village. Um, but there's
Hard
that
work.
element of like, yes, I don't think I could handle being a mom. But there's that element of like, even when you don't have kids, there's that feeling of like mother of the team, like I want to make sure everybody's
Mhm.
okay, everybody's taken care of. And to your point, you're taking care of them, you're taking care of putting the food on their table and all of that kind of stuff. And it's
Yes.
a lot. And as part of that, you want everybody to be in the big happy family, whereas you have to kind of take off the mother hat and put on the CEO hat and go, whoa, 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 this person is not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And they've been not doing it for far too long. And we've already given them this many chances. This has to end, and this has to end now. Probably should have ended 3 months ago, but it's ending now.
Oh, yes. That's a whole nother lesson and can of worms to get through. And
Yeah.
you just have to experience it. And you just have to, sometimes you hit so much pain that you realize, like, okay, there is no way out of this other than me.
Mhm.
So it's got to make them rip that band-aid off.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
totally get that. Now, let's dive into your businesses because
Yes.
you mentioned copywriting.
Mhm.
But if you could mention, like, what does your overall business look like now, and what pillars are they, and who do you serve?
Yes, great question. So we're a 3-brand business. The original business, the copywriting brand, the Comprehensive Copywriting Academy, and then Circuit Sales System, so that's the copywriting is for people who want to become professional copywriters. And then the Circuit Sales System is for coaches, course creators, even one-on-one service providers who want to sell effectively and automatically without live launching or anything like that. And then our other brand is Fired Up Freelancers for people who want to be successful freelancers in any industry. Don't do what I did, friends. Don't do it. Don't do it. Because here's the thing. I
Well,
started the
don't
circuit
have
sale.
what?
But
Wait, don't
don't
have
do
what?
it. I started the Comprehensive Copywriting Academy, and it's great. We've worked with more than 11,000 students, and it chugs along pretty well. But there's also still, it's a business. There's still stuff that has to be done with the
Mhm.
business. And then we're like, all right, we could do this for a freelancer, because a lot of this that we teach our copywriters, we can do for freelancers in any case. So we created that and we started building that up. Okay, well that's good. And get that going. And then I had a friend say, hey, that system that you used to sell your courses, that's something you could teach. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, this is a totally new audience. We should be building a totally new separate business to sell to this audience. It is, as much as, I mean, everything that we sell is automated, right? It's all automated. So I have business owner friends who are like, what do you do with your day? Like, oh, there is stuff. But the focus is admittedly split. Now,
Yeah.
when I'm working on a brand, I'm working on that brand. When I'm in coaching calls for Circuit Sales System, I am in there, and I am, like you were
Gotta
saying, you can't
balance.
can't really turn it off. So I'm perpetually thinking about doing something for this brand and something for this brand. But and the poor Fired Up freelance brand, it's an excellent program, and that's part of what makes me keep it around, even though I know that I shouldn't,
Hard
because it's
part
an
is when you know
excellent
you
program.
can,
Yes, but
when
it
you know
doesn't get
you
as much
can do it,
focus.
you know it's good,
Mhm.
you know that you're capable, you know
Yeah.
that's almost, like, overly optimistic, like, you're
Yeah.
overly, like, wanna help everybody, but in all reality, so you said don't do it. So you
But just
feel like you have to be, you mentioned commitment earlier, and there's a theme here, like, okay, you have to commit,
yes.
but committing to how many things? Because
Yeah.
I kind of of this too,
Oh, yeah.
like, totally,
Oh, yeah.
totally caught
The
red-handed.
only way that I've seen this work is when you build up one business and it really runs on its own. Like, really, you have the team, they run it on its own. And I will say that as we built up the copywriting business, a lot of that, we are maybe like 90% of the way there on that business. But then if you're going to start another one, first of all, make sure you maximize the first one. If you're going to start another one, then make sure get that to the point where it completely runs on its own before you start thinking, but like this whole, it's too much. My focus is way too split. And admittedly, they're all, and I love them all, and they're all really great brands, and they all really help people. We get people regularly being like, "Oh my gosh, thank you for this," and it's like,
This is where you need to hire another
yes,
engineer
your
in
clone.
each
Yep.
department. So it's like, you think bigger scale, right? Like, okay,
Yeah.
how does Elon Musk do it? Oh, first things first, he hires all the experts.
Mhm.
Bigger scale, obviously, raising
Yeah.
funds, like, that's a
Yeah.
huge thing in business as you scale. But
Yeah.
oh man, oh, I
Mhm.
love that you shared that because I think not enough people are transparent enough to they act like, "Oh, it's great, you could do it all, everything." Blah, blah, blah. So I really appreciate you sharing all that.
I genuinely think that that's probably slowed down our business the most, if I'm gonna be
Yeah.
completely honest. And
Mhm.
whenever I talk to business owners and like, "All right, I have this, and I'm gonna get this started with this business, and then I also think I'm gonna start this one at the same time." I'm like, "No, no, 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 because you
Pause.
can't." Exactly. This I used to work when I was to be in corporate, they would be like, "Oh, okay, we're gonna do these projects on parallel paths." And I always laugh because it's like, "But you have the same people working on the same projects. We can't be on two paths at the same time." And that's exactly what we're all trying to do. Like, I'm going to build this one up. And then at the same time, you can't be
It's like
on,
we're all
you're one
distracted.
person. Yes. Yes. And we're like,
Oh
this, this.
gosh,
And
I love your honesty there.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Don't do it. Don't do it, friends. Or at least if you're going to do it, make
Be
sure that
ready.
it be deliberate. Yes. Be ready and be deliberate with everything that you do, because it is so easy to be like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this. And
Breadwin,
yeah, it's really easy
burnout.
to. Yeah.
Mm. Gosh, I can relate to that. Okay.
Mhm. Well, and then
Ah,
too, if you can't, not to, but like if you can't turn it off for one business, imagine then you start a second one with a totally different audience. Then guess what? Then that's two businesses to think about. Or in my case, three businesses that I'm constantly thinking about. So it's blessings and curses, blessings and curses.
oh gosh.
Yeah.
It is a challenge to have an abundant mindset, right? Because you're just
Yes.
like, abundant.
Possibility.
Right, I
Yeah.
can have money, I could do this, why not?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's kind of been my focus this year personally is the elimination game. Like, it's
Mhm.
actually more about knowing yourself and eliminating, and that is a whole 'nother thing. But, God, I'm so glad and thankful that you mentioned these things. And I could go on forever, but let's tell everybody where they can find you
Yeah,
because it
absolutely.
sounds like you can help multiple multiple different types of people.
Too many. I can help too many people. No, no,
Oh,
they're all amazing programs, and I'm very proud of
yeah.
them. Well, if you are, a course creator, coach, or a service provider, or something like that, go to Circuit Sales System on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. And if you kind of want to see how it works from the inside out, go to circuitselling.com, and you can opt in and kind of see how the machine works. And yeah, that's probably. I mean, if you are interested in just seeing what a crazy entrepreneur looks like, you can follow me at Nicki.Krawczyk on Instagram. It's a little bit of business, a little bit of personal, but follow me, increase my vanity metrics for my own personal account. And there you go. Make me feel better for that one 5-minute increment.
Oh my gosh, that is hilarious. You're so funny. Okay, great. And then one piece of advice you'd give everyone before you leave.
One piece of advice I would give everyone, I would at least once a week, if not, frankly, once a day, reflect on how you're actually spending your time. Because it is so easy for our time to get and for us to say, like, this is my priority. And then you discover at the end of the week that you've spent like 15 minutes on your priority and it's gotten sucked up. It's just time passes so quickly and so easily. And it's so easy to get other stuff on your plate that you suddenly realize you're not moving ahead in the ways that you need to. So at least once a week, if not, quite honestly, once a day or once every couple of days, just evaluate where your time is actually going. It's going to make such a huge difference in your business.
Thank you. Those are such wise words.
Thank you.
Well, thanks so much for chatting today and for sharing all of this. I might have to interview you for a part two because there's so many more questions that I have, but I think this was great. And I really love your message on, committing to one thing until it works.
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
if you're committing to that, to being the best at that one thing or committing to your business and making it work, then the only way out is through,
Mhm.
right? So,
Yes.
uh, thank you so much.
Thank you, Toree. This was so fun.
Well, my friends, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Work Better podcast. I hope you've wrapped up your golden nugget and take it with you on your journey to finish out the week. Don't forget to follow, subscribe, leave a review, or reach out to me personally if you have any special requests for guests or questions you'd like me to share on the show. In the meantime, I'll be over here rooting for you. Until next time.